These are the standards. The mids. The mid-priced, mid-performance hot hatches. We've got to bring the GTI and the Civic Si back because we have the Hyundai Veloster N with us. The GTI that I'm in and the Hyundai Veloster N are both 29 and change, somewhere in there. The Civic Si is 25. They're all front-wheel drive. They're all kind of the same horsepower, kind of. But really, it's the price that brings all these cars together.
You're watching Everyday Driver. We make a TV show, podcast,
and YouTube channels dedicated to great cars, driving adventures, and helping you find a car you'll love.
subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss a thing.
This is the car that starts this whole category of automobiles. The Golf was a great, chuckable, low power, but still really fun and usable car, and Volkswagen takes it and makes the GTI, which is the hotter, faster, more hardcore version, and spawns an entire area of car making. Here we are in the latest version of the Golf GTI. This is the commemorative Rabbit Edition.
It comes in 4 exclusive colors. The beautiful Clark Plaid and the golf ball shifter. You also get this nifty badge on the back. How cute! Never tell a man his car is cute. That won't do. But it is the performance benchmark for this price because it's been around for so long. All that's been done really throughout the years is headlights and taillights. Yeah, there's a crisp line here and a highlight there, but especially in this color, Urana gray, it's a pencil lead gray, or even the mud I ate as a kid with a slight bit of matte. My point is, the car disappears, especially in this color.
The thing that Volkswagen does really well is create an amazingly high baseline for the interior of their cars. The Golf itself benefits from that. The GTI adds to it only slightly. But the thing is, for your money, you look around in here and there's no offensive materials. There's nothing that you touch and you just think, well, that just feels really cheap. There's nothing remarkable about the Rabbit, except they do come with the traditional plaid seats. And look, it's got a little rabbit badge on the side. That's so cute.
There have been 8 generations of the SI, now screwed to the 10th generation of the Civic platform. It's the cheapest and the lightest. The styling looks best on something performance. As a base Civic, it's a tough sell. From a size perspective, the Civic is now as big as Accords were in the 90s. This used to be the Accord size.
Apple CarPlay in here, they've finally gotten rid of the terrible touchpad for the volume on this main screen, and that's novel. I actually have a volume knob. These are actually my favorite of all 3 seats. I wish they had just a little bit more support, but these are all-day seats. The back seats have a lot of legroom, and the headroom is better than you expect. If you're 6-footers, you're not going to want to go cross-country, but you're going to dinner, you're going to be perfectly happy.
And now, finally, the Hyundai Veloster N. Finally, N products in the United States.
What's funny is I've heard some people accidentally refer to this car as the Nuremberg edition. This is a common American problem. It's not Nuremberg, because that would be, instead of faster, it would be now with more Nazis. No, this is the Nürburgring edition. Nürburgring meaning the ring, the track that many of us that are car enthusiasts dream to drive. In fact, we take a trip once a year just because it's that exciting to go and drive on the Nürburgring. Many companies have a test center there in Nürburgring, not Nuremberg, Nürburgring, where they actually set up kind of a skunk works and make their cars drive better. Hyundai created a test center at the Nürburgring, and now they are making the N, as in Nürburgring editions. This is one of them. But of course, this is the 2nd generation for the Veloster, which is Hyundai's very odd 3-door car. I love it in this red color, but they've gone even more aggressive with the N package.
The 1st generation Veloster, okay, admittedly quirky. You had to get used to the doors. Now it just kind of makes sense. The 2nd generation has been updated in a good way, and they're making use of this gaping mouth now.
This does get a brand new front and rear fascia, so the front and rear of this car are not like the rest of the Veloster models. Hyundai's really nailed the low, wide stance of this car. In fact, it is just by a little bit the shortest of all 3 cars here. There is a surprising amount of rear seat headroom and legroom. When you get in, granted only from the right side, if you're big guys like us at over 6 feet tall, you will fit. This is the only car I can think of ever that has only got 3 window switches on the door panel, because you have 3 doors with 3 roll-down windows. This area behind the driver here, this is actually a longer door on the driver's side, and as a result, there isn't a roll-down window behind me. It's a quirky idea until you start using it a little bit for a drop-off at a school run, or for the way that most people are going to get in when they get in the back, which is from the curbside.
The instrument panel, it's not fussy, it works great. The screen is nice. It's these 2 buttons right here. The drive mode, the customization mode.
Suspension changes, steering changes, your amount of traction control changes, and you can dial in when you hit the N button. That is now your custom mode button.
If you haven't driven anything else and you want a fun, hot hatchback that's reasonably priced, you look for a GTI. If the Rabbit Edition strikes you and you want the Clark Plaid and the golf ball shifter and the cute little tag on the seats, there's no doubt Volkswagen is the most refined of all of these cars. They always have been. They've had years to perfect it.
It's that same 2-liter turbo. It's the same MQB platform that Volkswagen uses for nearly everything they make. It makes it a simple commemorative car, but if you think of the Golf as having 4 trim levels, this is the second to the bottom. 228 horsepower here, just over 250 pound-feet of torque. This has enough grunt for anything you're going to do in a normal life. It isn't frantic though, it's just an appliance engine.
This car can hustle, no doubt. I love that. It gives you 4 modes of driving. And it's right down here by the shifter, where the start-stop button is. We push mode here and you get on the screen here, eco, normal, and sport, and then you get custom mode as well. Things change when you put it in sport mode. You've got the ELSD that can throw torque around. And from a front-wheel drive car perspective, it's good. I like it.
I'm gonna go into sport mode. I was in sport mode. That's disappointing. You get an increase in throttle response. You actually get an artificially increased steering weight, but you don't get any more information.
I'm waiting for more, but I don't want to have to step up to the Golf R to get more. I want this to feel like it's less of an incremental change and more of a special thing.
Traditionally, this is where the whole VTEC legend comes from. The Civic Si is a car that has always had a naturally aspirated engine with different valve timing depending on where you are in the rev band. But here in this Si, things have changed.
The Civic Si has a now 1.5 liter engine. It's turbocharged and it makes 205 horsepower, so pretty decent.
It feels very competitive with the other 2 in sheer speed, but it's quite a bit down on power. This just breaks the 200 horsepower barrier and has less than 200 pound-feet of torque. The party trick here is the weight. This Civic Si, even though it's not a Spartan interior, this doesn't feel like a light or cheap car, and yet it weighs just over 2,800 pounds. In fact, it is nearly 400 pounds lighter than the GTI.
When you do get the Si, it is also only the manual transmission, just like the Type R. But just like every other one of their engines, there's rev hang. You can take your foot off the throttle, and it'll just hang out at the RPM. Same thing on the downshift.
The problem here, though, is the pedals are still terribly placed. It was this way on the Type R, and it's also this way here. It is nearly impossible to heel toe this car. This clutch take-up is terrible. It's right at the very top of the pedal with like 3 different feels as you try to release the clutch. However, the way it works is fantastic for that little stop-and-go creep that you do, where you want to move a little bit, you just slightly engage the clutch, and it feels like it was designed for that and not for fun driving.
I don't care about more performance. Give me a driving setup, a pedal placement, a steering wheel, and a seat that makes me feel like I'm a racing driver. I like this car. I'm gravitating towards it for the balance between commuting and sport driving.
It's difficult to get into this car after the Civic with bad clutch feel, because this one's right off the floor and the Civic is at the top of the travel. So when you jump into them in this order, it's actually difficult to drive the Veloster smoothly right away because the clutch take-up is so completely different than what your body's just gotten used to. This is a small problem. I will deal.
275 horsepower thrown through the front wheels, and you think, well, it's gonna just be an overpowered, stupid front-wheel drive car. Hyundai has paid attention to every part of this car, from suspension to engine to steering, and they've done it for $29,000 and change. The GTI is just over $29,000.
Yes, there's no question this Veloster N is faster than the other two. You can feel it when you put your foot all the way in it. It is by far the angriest and the most aggressive at just rocketing you down the road. The E-Diff, of course, pushes power around back and forth and tries to mitigate the fact that you have nearly 300 horsepower trying to push its way through front wheels. That generally is a recipe for understeery, torque-steery disaster in a front-wheel drive car like this. Now, if you really get on it from a stop, you're going to feel it wiggle a little bit as it fights itself or fights the electronics. But overall, this is a car like the Fiesta ST that when you get on a back road, you're just surprised at how genuinely fun and dynamic it is. You don't care where the drive wheels are.
I like the GTI, I've always liked it. And it just seems friendly and it's really easy to drive. The shifter, the seating position, it says economy, but then there's some spice underneath.
This GTI is by far the softest of these three cars. It's not wallowy, the body roll is controlled, but I feel like the back half of the car is from a cheaper automobile. This does have Volkswagen's good limited slip diff. It's an electric limited slip diff. It can kill understeer as best it can, which of course is the plague of these front-wheel drive cars. That is a nice addition to get in this Rabbit. And it is something that when Volkswagen started putting it in their GTIs, it definitely helped the dynamics and it helped the feel. And while it's only a tiny bit heavier than the Veloster has taken its weight and made itself feel grounded. Here, the weight just makes this car feel distant.
There's very little feedback of the road through this car. I don't know what the tires in the corner is doing. Other companies have done this successfully. The Fiesta ST came on the market and it shocked everybody. How could a front-wheel drive car be this good? If you haven't driven one, go surprise yourself. And you come to the GTI, it offers a great balance for commuting, good fuel economy, it can hustle through corners, except it's got these other two cars that are along for the shoot, whose companies think entirely differently than Volkswagen does.
I want a level on this Rabbit that is more taut, hunkered down to the road, than this car is able to provide, even in its sportiest setting.
Now, are most people going to be buying the Civic Si and attacking canyon roads like we are? Maybe. There is some fun to be had. The biggest thing that you have to remember about the SI is that it needs consistency. It doesn't like to be upset at all.
The car is a tiny bit wallowy in the normal setting. You put the sports setting on, it does feel better. The steering effort gets harder, and it does actually increase the stiffness of the dampers.
That's a huge difference. Change the button when you're mid-corner, and then feel what the suspension does. The car's attitude changes. Now it feels like something.
There really isn't any steering feel here, whether you have it in normal or sport. You don't really feel like you're connected to the tires, but they are listening to your commands, so that's good news. But it's that low weight that does the most for giving me confidence and fun when I'm throwing it into a corner. It isn't as aggressive in cornering as that Hyundai, but it actually has a better ride than the GTI. This is by far the most consistent, best riding car of the three.
This car hangs on better than you think it does. You think it's awesome, and it's even better. I want sport mode on all the time. I mean, throw this car in. You want to actually settle it with the throttle. Why on earth should a front-wheel drive car feel this way? I love this car.
What I'm enjoying most on a road like this, besides the crazy fun power, is the handling dynamic. This is planted in a way the other two aren't, and that's that track tuning. You get on a freeway with expansion joints, you're going to start to hate yourself if you're in the N setting, but that's not what it's for. You drop it down at that point to Eco. That's a lot more body roll. But now it's just smoothing things out and feels like a normal, everyday hatchback. But I'd rather be in N mode. Much better.
And back to the ring part of it, back to the Nürburgring, it's not just, oh, we're setting ring times. We're setting feeling. We're setting a new standard for front-wheel drive cars. I'm feeling the road, I'm feeling the tires, I'm feeling placement of the car. This is the bigger, better, more astounding Fiesta ST. If you're a fan of German cars and you're a fan of beautifully crafted interiors for a really good price, the GTI Rabbit Edition is for you. It'll go fast and it's fun in a straight line, but when we drop it into this environment, where did all that fun go?
I want to feel a little tingling, a little suggestion that there's fun in the car, just lurking below at all times. This doesn't have that. Now you may be saying, but the Golf can be tuned. Let me tell you about this tuner that I went to. Let me tell you about these great parts. You're right. These have been around long enough that you can tune them into monsters, but this is the stock setup. The other two are also the stock setup. It's the only way to really compare a baseline version of any car, and this is the least engaging. I hate to say it, but it is.
You can get after it in the Civic, you can. I do feel like it's a good balance for commuting, for comfort, for space. It's still a good size. It's not too small, but it's not a hulking SUV. But there's still something down in there. You gotta go searching for it, but there's still something here.
This segment is an all-around world. You want a car that does everything. It needs to be fun when you have the opportunity to be fun, but you also need to just be able to commute in it. I think in that all-around world, the Civic just might win.
I can't think of a better sweet spot between price, the fun it brings you, decent space, cool to look at. I'm astounded.
If you're somebody that is shopping for a hatchback, this needs to be near the top of your list for sheer driver fun. However, if you sit in traffic a lot, this is probably a little bit hardcore. It's probably a little bit too much. Okay, so here we are kind of with, I guess, the difficult middle children.
Yes, there's still two versions above these two cars. There's the Golf R and then there's the Civic Type R. But when it comes to the Hyundai, there is nothing more. There is not the N Plus, the N more. They've brought it all. And so for that reason, because it's so different, dynamically, performance, everything, value, why wouldn't I get this? The N is $4,000 more than the Civic Si. Why wouldn't you just get this by virtue of price, let alone how good it drives?
Okay.
Veloster N for me.
So you're just going, wow, you're just going straight.
We're done. We're done.
You're done. Okay. I like this. Look, I love the N. The N is awesome. You know me, I love sports cars. However, I think
There's
in this category, I know. I like fun, hardcore sports cars. I still don't think the N is the right car for most people.
Okay, so you're choosing for the category, the middles that we're in. Well,
in that category, which is where we are, I didn't buy the hot model. To your point, I bought something that feels a little bit sporty. Isn't this fun? I think the Si wins because I don't think the GTI goes far enough, and this rides the best of all three.
Save some money, I get it.
Yeah.
But then again, $4,000 in price difference. You're not even gonna feel that in your monthly payment. What? It's just gonna be spread out over 60 months. You'll get an N, you can go to the track, you can do that, and it has comfort mode.
So you practically work at the car dealer with
comfort
mode
like that.
It has comfort
Veloster.
mode, but you're gonna be much happier in traffic in this Si. And that's where this actually does win, even though if you're asking me driving, it's the Veloster.
It's the middle of the middle children, then, is what you're picking?
And parked in the middle. And we're done.
After all these years, after decades of development, after knowing that you have the thing wrapped up, you've got the class, you set the benchmark, why aren't you continuing to iterate and push on it? For that reason, the GTI is third for me.
There are certainly cars in the lineup that are exciting. It's just this is refined to a point that the personality's kind of been rounded off and it just works and it's fine, but it's not fun.
On good freeways, it's smooth, it's fast, it's comfortable. You've got pretty good passing power because you've got turbocharged goodness now. The gas mileage is there, the room, the space in this car is still good for, what about the Si for commuting?
The Civic takes it on price, it takes it on weight. It actually is just behind the Hyundai in genuine fun to drive. But because this does the best job of being an all-around package, I think it has to take this.
Veloster N, making you once again forget about rear-wheel drive cars. It does. It does. Number one choice, far and away.
There's no question that this Veloster N is the better driver's car. The other two are the better car for more people.